Hello, fellow psychonauts, psychedelic investors, and those of you who have just stumbled across this video because you're interested in possibly investing in the psychedelic space. Welcome to Psychedelic Invest's YouTube channel, and in today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the Compass Pathways Q1 of 2022 earnings report. This was released on May 10th. So to give you guys a little background info on Compass Pathways, Compass is one of the biggest and most well-known biotech companies in the psychedelic sector. They have a tremendous amount of funding, and they have some very big fish in regards to the amount of money that's backing them. For example, Atai Life Sciences is the elephant in the psychedelic room, in my opinion. Atai Life Sciences. And they happen to have an ownership stake in Compass Pathways as well. That's just one example. But Compass Pathways is one of the companies that I follow on the regular, and I'm very optimistic about their path to FDA approval. So that's what I have to say about Compass, and let's get into the business highlights. So we have positive results for the groundbreaking Phase 2B clinical trial. So in any normal market conditions, this would have been a really nice sector and Compass-specific catalyst. But due to the macroeconomic conditions we are experiencing, this fell on deaf ears. It's unfortunate, but as investors in the sector or speculators in the sector, this is what you want to see. We want to see positive results through the Phase 2, through the Phase 3, and eventually approval. So I would, as somebody who would be assessing Compass, I'm very happy to read about this. They are going to most likely be the first to, they're going to be the first in the Phase 3 regarding psychedelics, and they will, if they can show efficacy, which in my opinion and a lot of other people who I've spoken to the psychedelic community, we do believe that Compass could end up being the first to market regarding psilocybin and FDA approval. So that's going to be amazing when it happens, and we'll see how smooth that goes. But yeah, this is great for the sector and great for Compass as well. I also wanted to touch on the 10 granted patents issued to date covering composition, formulation, and method of use. So this is a very divisive topic in the psychedelic community because from speaking to many of you, it's basically Compass is polarizing because they aggressively pursue these patents. So the reality is, though, you have to separate kind of the personal feelings around how available psychedelics should be for mental health purposes from the business side of things, whereas these companies are pouring this money into developing these drugs, and they need to make returns on their money, and the way they're going to do it is by patenting these drugs and also pushing them through the pipeline and getting FDA approval. So it's unfortunate that this is kind of how things work in this day and age, because I do believe that that psychedelics, especially like pharmaceutical grade psychedelics, should be available to everyone, because that's just how it should be. It's a quality of life and mental health thing. It should be readily and easily available for everyone. So like some of these aggressive patents that, let's say, Compass is going after, it can leave a bitter taste in some investors' mouths. But first off, we'll see how some of their more specific patents, if they even get those patents. But in regards to protecting their intellectual property, like the formulation of the drugs and the delivery methods, I understand that, and as an investor, it's just how these companies are going to turn a profit in the near future. That's their pathway to profitability. So I see both sides of the argument here, but in regards to just looking at it from an investor's perspective, you have to kind of just be okay with some of the patents that these companies will be pursuing, because once again, this is just going to be their pathway to profitability. So now we're going to get into their developmental programs. So what I really like about Compass and what they're doing with Comp 360 is essentially they're basically throwing at all these different things, and they're just trying to show efficacy in regards to these things. And I like it because they're doing it with just Comp 360. It's their formulation of psilocybin, and they're like, we're going to throw it at treatment-resistant depression. We're going to throw it at now autism. We're going to throw it at anorexia, and we're going to see if we can show promising results for this. I just think it's very efficient, and if they can show efficacy, it's a big deal. So we have the phase 2 trial in PTSD ongoing at King's College in London, which is great. Once again, in the psychedelic community, we know that psychedelics are very effective for specific things like PTSD, depression, anxiety. But now we got an interesting thing here. So Compass is now going to be doing. They're looking into studying, basically Comp 360 for adults who are on the spectrum. So I'll give you guys a little background info on myself. So at a young age, I was diagnosed with severe ADHD, and also I am on the spectrum. So from my own personal experience, nothing ever worked as well as psychedelics. Full stop. Psychedelics were the only thing to help me in my path in regards to my struggles with ADHD and also being on the spectrum. So like I love that Compass is doing this. I believe that they're the only company who is looking into psilocybin for adults who are on the spectrum. I think this has the potential to show some very promising results, and I'm excited to see where they go with this. It's just it warms my heart to see psychedelics being studied in this way, because like I said, this is my personal opinion, but I do believe psychedelics are one of the better ways for helping people with ADHD and also people who are on the spectrum. So we'll see how things progress with this, but I'm super stoked about this study, and I'm going to be following it very closely. So now we also have positive early signals seen in investigator-initiated studies in anorexia. So I personally don't have any experience with this, but I can definitely see how psychedelics can show efficacy in regards to treating anorexia. And the reality is, in regards to these three things, what we have on the markets is just not, the drugs that we have on the markets is just not cutting it. And psychedelics have a chance of taking so much market share and even changing the paradigm for how we look at treating some of these things. So I'm super excited to follow these studies and to see how the results kind of pan out and how things unfold. I'm just very optimistic generally, as I feel like you guys can tell already that I'm very bullish and optimistic about psychedelics in general. All right, and now we're just gonna dive into the financial highlights. So we have a net loss of $21.2 million compared with $12.7 million during the same period in 2021. So that's a decent increase, but it's to be expected. They're progressing all their drugs through their pipeline. They're paying employees. Employees are getting stock options. Like, just things are, they're going to be spending money in order to grow as a company and to progress their pipeline. It's just the reality of things. As an investor, what I would recommend you do is pay attention to see how much it keeps growing. So right now it's at 21.2 million. They have cash of about 243.7 million. So if we do the paper math here, doing this in my head, we'll say that they have over a 2-year runway. That is, once again, like I usually say, GH Research had a similar runway. Tremendous. Over 2 years of cash runway in the psychedelic sector is so significant. And this is, in my opinion, one of the best things that Compass has going for them. They have so much cash. So what we're going to be seeing within the psychedelic sector, and what we have seen, like for example with Numinous and Novamind, is if these market conditions don't ease or reverse over time, we're going to see some of these companies start consolidating. And this is going to be because of running out of cash. You're not going to have to worry about that with Compass. If anything, Compass could probably buy one of these smaller companies, and it really and just they can add that to their, let's say, their pipeline or what they have to offer. But that's just a hypothetical. So the reality is Compass's cash position is phenomenal. And I hope that those of you who are kind of assessing psychedelic stocks in the current market conditions, I just can't stress enough how much you need to pay attention to the cash on hand. Cash on hand and net losses. So important. Figure out how much of a cash runway they have. I mean, I do it in the videos. Watch my videos if you want. I'll do the breakdowns for you. But when a safe area is a year, 2 years plus is an extremely safe area. So what that means is you just have so much more time before you have to worry about dilution or anything else, because they have the cash to support themselves. It's fairly obvious. So once again, I cannot speak any more highly on Compass's cash position. They're loaded. They're loaded, and they have a really, really nice runway. Let's pay attention to the 21.2 million and see what it increases to or decreases to potentially, but I'm going to work on the assumption that's going to increase next quarter. Let's see how their net losses kind of increase quarter by quarter. And then we can assess through every ER just basically how much of a runway they have. How much time do we have to keep assessing how we feel about investing in this company before current investors or potential investors have to even think about dilution. So I love this for Compass. They have a lot of cash. It's perfect. They're going to go a while before they have to worry about it. As an investor or potential investor in Compass, I wouldn't be worried about their cash position much. Just pay attention to their net losses, see how much they go up quarter by quarter. They will most likely go up because of just pushing more drugs through the pipeline and expanding. But just see how much it continues to add up over time. But yeah, that's their earnings report. They have 243.7 million as of the 31st of March. So they are flush with cash, and that's pretty much that. They're flush with cash, and as somebody speculating on the sector, this would be one of the companies I look at first because of their cash position. And also because they're going to be the first ones doing psilocybin in a phase 3 trial. So we also have that. All right, we're also going to take a look at the charts now. But before we do, once again, just going to preface it by saying the markets have been very red lately. The macroeconomic conditions at play have not been great for the markets. I don't see this earnings report having any moving the needle in any direction for Compass. It's not. I just see it once again falling on deaf ears, and this is basically for investors to basically remain confident in their investment. This is mostly investors are going to find value here. I don't think it's going to do anything for the stock price. So let's get to the charts. All right. So Compass closed in the green today at $8.20. That's not surprising. We had our first green day in the markets of the week. So what we're going to see is essentially Compass, and I have a tie here. You can see these guys right here. The charts look very similar, but they're basically just going to be following the NASDAQ. Until the markets show signs of a reversal, these companies will just track the broader markets, and that's just what's going to happen. We'll see how things play out over time, but what I will say is this: if you're looking to start a position in Compass, um, what I would do is I would avoid, number one, I would avoid using margin right now, and I would avoid buying options. I would look into just getting common shares and understanding that the markets are going to be extremely volatile for the next 6 months at least, most likely more. So, with that in mind, the way you can kind of hedge your risk is by obviously not using margin and also not diving into options. I think common shares are the best choice right now, because at the end of the day, as most of you guys watching this video probably know, with common shares, you can hold on to them for as long as you need to. You can wait up to like as long as you need to for a reversal within this company before you sell. And it's easier to manage, more or less. I know people who have held biotech stocks for 10 years and then ended up turning a profit. So that's through common shares. So that would be what I would do. I would look at just owning common shares, not using margin, and avoiding options until we see a more optimistic market. So in closing, essentially, the markets are extremely. They're reaching like extreme levels of fear. Um, I would really just kind of. I think cash is king right now. But if you want to throw some money at any of these companies, I would suggest using common shares and avoid using margin. And with that said, I appreciate each and every one of you for the support I've received, and I look forward to covering a Ties earnings report, which should be released very soon, actually. So I will see you then. Have a great day. And this is Adam with Psychedelic Invest. Have a great night.